Hello everybody, today is Shabbat, according to the Hebrew language and the Jewish custom, so that means it's Sabbath, and on this particular one, I'm going to do the video about it, and for some reason I have this inspiration, maybe partially out of a guilty feeling. I'm doing a guilt trip on myself, just pointing the finger back at me and questioning whether I'm following this religious law. How is the Sabbath supposed to be kept? It is a commandment from the Mosaic Code, the 10 Commandments. And Moses brought this down from the mountain, Mount Sinai, and prior to this, I don't know what was going on in history. So let's take a look at a few things. I did the search on Google because it gives you an indication of the knowledge that's out there. When I search on this term, Sabbath Shabbat, which is the English transliteration of the Hebrew word Shabbat, I come up with all these images, and it's all Jewish oriented with the Hebrew letters, Hebrew symbols, and with the bread. And all this stuff is symbolism that you can compare with Christianity. Of course, basic knowledge will tell you that Christianity came out of Judaism. Now, when I do a search just on the term Sabbath, take a look at what comes up. All pictures of this hard rock band called Black Sabbath, and it just takes up all the listings. I find this to be a major error on the Google search, and I'm just going to assume that this will happen on, and finally, after 100 pictures, it says, Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath. A quote from the Gospel, the book of Mark. So, this is just like a really ridiculous error. If people are searching for Sabbath, why does Black Sabbath come up? I'm not going to talk about what my musical preferences are or the history of what I've listened to in music. That doesn't matter. If I'm searching for Sabbath, I don't want to see a rock band that for some reason took up the word Sabbath. So then we have to do the complex thing of going to the advanced search in Google. And a lot of people don't know how to click around. They just basically go to the main Google box. But you have to find it in the menu. And I search Sabbath, but I want none of these words. And I put in quotations Black Sabbath. Then you'll see what I get for that. No more Black Sabbath turning up. So you see everything that is about Sabbath. The Sabbath. Okay? Sabbath rest. Remember the Sabbath. Or the Jews in the language of Hebrew will say the Shabbat. Sabbath is once a week. And like I said, right now is a Sabbath. It's questionable. Like, there would be a debate as far as, should I or should I just refrain from doing a video, even if it's about Shabbat on Shabbat. That's where there would be controversy. People would make their opinions. And then in countries which have Sharia law or very orthodox, like extremism, then they might say, it's not our opinion, we know it's wrong, and now we're going to stone you to death, or we're going to tie you up, and, you'll be punished, and then you'll be judged by God, the final judgment. And then they'll say, like in Saudi Arabia, or Yemen, or Indonesia, or China, communist law. North Korea law. The United States also has laws against dissidents, political dissidents, religious. Do they really respect religious freedom? FDR said that we have the 4 freedoms, and the second one is the freedom to worship God as you choose to. Whatever is your decision, whatever is your religious practice, you have the freedom to do so. But do they really do that? We have to think about, this is a new shirt, by the way, that's why I keep fussing with it, because I'm not sure. Sabbath is a tradition, like I said, comes from Moses, so this is about over 3,000 years ago. No, correction. Abraham was about 3,000 years ago. Moses was probably about 2,500 years ago, or but not quite 3,000 years ago. And basically what happens is, after the 3 patriarchs that descend from Abraham through those centuries, he came to the point where Joseph was the 4th generation. Remember Joseph, he got taken into Egypt, and he was raised there, and he became integrated in with the Egyptian, the dynasty at that time, because ancient Egypt went back many centuries and even more than 1,000 years. So Joseph was there. Joseph with the special coat that he had, and he was one of the tribes, one of the progenitors of the tribe, the fathers of the tribes, and the other 11 were his brothers or half-brothers, siblings, and they got rid of him. So there he is, stuck in this foreign land, and he becomes like the Egyptians. And supposedly that's how you get this tradition of the Israelites being a new people, just gathered together to take them out of Egypt and form a new nation. And so it would have been from Joseph's descendants, that lineage, and his 11 siblings, that lineage, those lineages. So all of them were there laboring in Egypt, and they just gathered together under Moses and went on the Exodus. Okay, so that period, that is the beginning of Sabbath. So we're talking about Sabbath, so we have to know something historically. So I have a lot of questions about what did people do before that? Was there any such thing as Sabbath? I hear different traditions talking about the way they structured the calendar and the week. And by the way, Sabbath is all about calendar. It's all about how we schedule our life. And why is it every 7? What is the special quality of the number 7? That is symbolism. That is numerology. 7. Sabbath is the 7th day. That means after 6 days that were more or less the same, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they're all the same, then 7 comes and it's totally different. It reaches a level. It's like when you finish 7, that's an octave, right? 1, 2, 3, like an octave. Octo means 8. Octopus, octo, 8. So when you play in piano, it's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you start A again, right? Isn't that how it goes? A, B, C. Gosh, I have to have a keyboard in front of me to process this. But it is 7 notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There's no H, because they go back to A. And the 8th one is basically the beginning. So octaves shouldn't be called that, actually. It should be called 7 notes, and then 7 notes, and 7 notes. So the way the music scale is set up is also according to the 7. So that's really significant that you can keep looking and you find lots of indications of the 7 count. This is numerology. This is the power of 7, the symbolism. What does it mean? Is there magical force behind it? Does it have a special energy? So on the 7th day, it's a Sabbath. We can also talk about what happened several hundred years later. What happened when... Oh, I'm sorry, we're on a very boring... Let's review the pictures a little bit more, so you have something to look at while I'm talking. I'm just catering to your attention span or something. The lowest common denominator of the, Anyhow, let's focus, because it is Sabbath and we've got to be serious about it, because supposedly what it says is a law that if we don't follow it, we get punished. Bad things can happen. This is the way we have to obey. If people before the Sabbath in history were wicked and bad, maybe this law was created so that they can have a reminder, so that they can be made good again. They were getting bad, like they wouldn't do what they're supposed to do, which is the purpose of Sabbath. So what do we do on Sabbath? I didn't even start talking about that yet. Well, Sabbath is after 6 days of doing your regular life, doing work, associating with people on that daily mundane level. You come to the 7th day and you're supposed to make it holy. What does that mean, holy? Holy is special. Make it higher, make it special, make it divine, make it sacred, and it's for God. G-O-D. Okay, who's the G-O-D? Well, we're not going to get into the name of G-O-D, the name of your God, gods, multiple gods, goddesses, demigods. We're not going to get into the name, but we're going to say that there is a higher power that everyone has, and with the Jews, it's transliterated in the abbreviation of their letters, Yahweh. So Yahweh is supposed to be the focus. You're supposed to give your love and your obedience and your thankfulness. That is the object of Sabbath, the Shabbat. So you can't be doing other things. You have to discipline your mind, your heart, and your soul towards this. Your heart and your soul, not only just your body, your actions, you've got to put it towards this. So they have all kinds of ceremonies and rituals that are the tradition for Sabbath. And when we saw this before, we, on the Jewish tradition, they have candles, see? And you see here, they have wine and fish, and you don't necessarily have to have fish. It's sometimes included, or usually. But it has the bread. And the bread is called challah. The challah. And you can see it also here behind the candles. The challah, here it is again. Two of them covered over by this, by Solomon's seal. Challah, here it is. And there's usually 2 of them. That's the tradition. Challah. And I like a good bread, but this is not a Peter-Appleseed video. We're just going to talk about the fact that there are 2 objects, edible objects, made out of grain. And it used to be really good. It used to be home-baked, usually. But nowadays, we get it from the baker or the supermarket or wherever. And you put it out, and for the Sabbath, Shabbat, it's one of the main symbols. What do? You break the bread and you eat it. You pass it around to everybody that's at the common table. It's being shared. So you break it and you dip it also in salt. Salt is a symbol. Melech. So the challah, which is bread, it's a special kind of bread. Normal bread is called lechem. And there's also another special bread once a year, which is called matzah. But challah is the bread for every 7 days on Shabbat, Sabbath. And now we're going to shift. We're going to say Christianity changed it and brought it to its own new level. Jesus was growing up. Jesus Christ, who became the Christ, or Yeshua, was living in this very well-recorded, controversial time of history. And they were going against the Hellenic world, the Greeks, the later, after all the ancient Greek civilization, and Rome had taken over as the military power, as the empire, as the police, as, controllers of the world, even where the Israelites were living. And there was a lot of struggle and people trying to become religious, or people just trying to be rebellious, rebellion against Rome, but also the rebellion against the Jew system, the Jewish temple system, the priests. A lot of the Jews were saying, look, we have our own problems internally. They don't even follow the law. They don't even follow Sabbath. They don't even keep the temple pure. They're using money in there. It's filthy. It's ungodly. It's not holy. It's not what it used to be. And we need to get rid of it. So Jesus and his followers, his group, the movement was within this thing. But they were practicing Jews, and they had their own way of taking the law. What Moses gave them, and from Abraham and all the other patriarchs, the prophets from the ancient time, thousands and thousands of years ago, all the way back to Adam, the first man, Adam and Eve. And Jesus Christ had his own way with it. He had his own methods, and he was divinely inspired, they say. And, he was the prophet of that time. And he was the Messiah. He was the highest prophet. He was the highest priest. But they didn't recognize him. So what he did was just give his message and get crucified. And then this whole spiritual shift happened in the world. And lo and behold, they created a religion, which is named after Christ, but it's not really what he was doing at the time. So there's a lot of controversy and disagreement and debate over that whole thing. But let's just get to what he said about Sabbath. The Last Supper, which Christians are very familiar with, which is what leads to Easter, is Jesus sitting down with all his closest followers, his closest friends and associates, and basically doing a Sabbath. And it's a high Sabbath because it's a holiday, Passover. And you see in the Last Supper that there's symbols of what they do for Shabbat. And he has bread, he breaks it, he has wine. But what he does is called the bread, lechem, the challah. He shows it to you. It's the Jewish tradition for Sabbath, and he says, it's my body. So he spiritualizes it. He does like a magical power, a miracle, and shares that. So he shares his body. He says, take of my body. There's controversy because people say, oh, he's promoting cannibalism or something. So anyhow, there's always some extreme, unique angle to take against this stuff, to argue a point. But then the other symbol is wine, and he says, this is my blood. Take of it, drink the wine. So he shares the wine. There's bread and there's wine. So these are symbols of Sabbath. And they have always been used since the time right after Moses. Okay? They have been used after the time that the law was given. See? And Jesus also did it about 2,000 years ago. Just a little bit less than 2,000 years. And ever since then, Jews have continued off in their own direction with Sabbath and keeping more of the older traditions going. And then in the other direction have been the Christians, which want to identify and call on Jesus Christ with their traditions, they have also done these things for now many, many centuries. And different churches, different denominations have their rituals that they use, their ceremonies, and they use the symbols. A lot of them use the bread. For example, with the Holy Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, I should say, they do Holy Communion. And that means one time of the week, which is Sabbath, they all get together and they offer the communion. So it's like a little like wafer that looks like it could last forever. It's like this dried out like thing. I don't even know what it's made out of. It's like a little tiny thing, and they share it. So they give it to everyone that comes up who's a Catholic. You can only receive it if you're a Catholic. So you line up and you do the sign like this, and they give it to you, and you're all supposed to drink a little bit of wine, but they have a massive amount of people. Well, they used to, like a few hundred people lining up for it. So how many loaves of bread would you need at that, Sabbath gathering on the Sunday? So here's this I'm going to conclude on this issue, is that the Jews, if their calendar is accurate for many thousands of years, they claim that this day, right now when I'm doing this video, Saturday, Shabbat, is every 7 days, and they've been counting this all the years, every 7 days. However, when Christianity got going, they started to use Sunday, which was the next day, the following day. And there's a big dispute about this, and one of the churches of Christianity is called Seventh-day Adventists, and they claim that it's still Saturday. They claim that Jesus never changed it. And this is a debate. Is the Sabbath day on Saturday or Sunday? Now, the Lord will tell you, not the Lord, the Lord's day. The Jews will tell you that Saturday is the day, because they claim that they've been keeping the calendar, and they stick to that. But the majority of Christian groups, Christian congregations or denominations, will tell you that it's Sunday. What does Tesla say about it? I don't know why they involve Tesla there. So basically, that's the video. What I'm going to do is a follow-up video to this on my Kaiboa channel. Kaiboa is the word that I give for all the spiritual, prophetic offerings that I have for the people. And Kaiboa is another channel. And I'm going to get more down to earth with it. I'm going to talk spiritually. I'm not going to ask so many questions. That's what I do on this channel. I bring up the issue, the subjects, and I analyze it. On Kaiboa, though, it's more like me. This is what I do. This is my practice. It's a more spiritual channel. Even though I don't want to say it, I want to say this channel, everybody here, it's for your spirituality. It's for spiritual awakening, spiritual truth. But you can see I cover all these topics, news, and all this stuff. So it's not spiritual in that sense. Maybe it's more intellectual or mystical here on this channel. But if you want to hear more, go to Kaiboa, and I'm going to talk more about this from that perspective. Thanks for watching, everybody.